This is an intro. I don't need the intro. I don't need an intro. This is just the
And we're back. Welcome back to Coil Wars, everyone. A build competition that pits builders in weekly build challenges, eliminating the one by one until only one remains and is crowned the Coil Wars Champion. This week is coming at you a little bit late. We got a little held up with the hurricane. I did a vlog a few days ago if you're curious about the details, but I don't want to take up your time with all that right now. I'm also pleased to announce that as of today, as of right now, the Coil Wars section is up and running over at VapingSwag.com. In the top left of the screen, right underneath the Vaping Swag logo, is a menu item for Coil Wars. And if you click that, you'll find that you have the opportunity to purchase t-shirts, purchase hoodies, and purchase vaping towels as well. On the front, it says Coil Wars in the same font that you see week after week in the show's intro. And on the back, it has all the builders in the competition listed there with their Instagram handles. They're in no particular order. When I sent them over the list, they were all alphabetized, and Shane over at Vaping Swag said that he was going to have to arrange them a particular way to get them all to fit. So that's very exciting. I've never been one to merchandise before. I don't have any merchandise up. This is going to be the first bit of merchandise I've put up at all. I just thought, not a day goes by that someone doesn't tell me that they're loving the heck out of Coil Wars. I love putting it on week after week, and I myself really wanted to have something to commemorate the first season. I'll be buying one for myself, I'll be buying one for my partner Dwayne, and I'll be buying one for each one of the competitors and sending them out to you guys. Dwayne, I couldn't do this without Dwayne, and the competitors coming at it week after week, build after build. You guys have just been so awesome to work with, and it's my small way of saying thank you. Let's get right into it. This week we asked our competitors to create, we asked them to create a few different things. We gave them some options. We told them they could create an extension build, which basically involves creating an extension using something like 18 gauge or 20 gauge from the post, the positive and negative posts, and building coils between those extensions. We also suggested that they make capture or leadless coils, and those involve a similar sort of strategy, creating an extension from the negative and positive post, except with capture and leadless builds, there's no wrapping of leads around those extensions. It's just basically a sandwich that's created by the extensions, sandwiching the build into place. And we also gave their builders the opportunity to create bridge coils, or altered bridge coils, as they're sometimes referred to. And naturally, that's what they all decided to do, because they're the most complicated of the bunch. The bridge coil concept was created by a builder who is actually no stranger to Coil Wars. We had him as a judge a few weeks ago when we did braided builds. His name is Tommy Nikwa. And of course, since they all did bridge builds, we asked him back to be a judge this week, but he couldn't make it. He was a bit tied up. But he did clarify some confusion I had about bridge coils. He says that there are some rules that have to go along when you're making bridge coils. He says that a bridge is a connector between two or more coils designed to create a continuous series. The bridge must not glow first or heat up more than the coils they connected. A successful bridge coil is a hotspot free in the bridge area. You can check the hotspots of the bridge area by looking at the after pre-fired picture of the build. A bridge coil with hotspots on the bridge area are vapable, but are not recommended as it's considered to be a failed build. So, my bad. If you saw last week's episode, yeah, I guess you can call that a failed bridge right there. I think what happened was that the resistance in the middle of the bridge was probably too low for the other coils to heat up properly and for the bridge not to glow up. A lot of people, and you'll see with these builds, most successful bridges actually are created when there's a bit of wire that's stacked between the two continuous coils there, oftentimes using ribbon wire or another thick gauge of wire. So my bad, if you're watching last week's video and you wanted to create a bridge coil, well, mine might not be the best example. And you'll see with our competitors' builds, they were much more successful than I was. But hey, that's why A, I'm not competing in this competition, and B, why I'm not judging this competition. that's left to better builders than me. Crazy Vapes, who is actually down in Florida right now helping get Florida back up and running, created an alter bridge which looks like 8 strands of 0.5 ribbon wire, double Tsuka wrapped in 0.5 ribbon, I believe, but it could be 0.4 looking at it. I'm not 100% on that. He framed it in 24 gauge, and the 24 gauge frames became quad coils on either end of the bridge. He mounted all that in the Seminole, and if you check out the video he created to go along with it, you can see that his coil performs perfectly.
Everybody wanted to see this parallel Tsuka alter bridge in action. I got it wicked up with that cotton candy collection. This is 0.32 ohms at 70 watts. Vaping on that Convict Vapor Alcatraz. My goal was to make a vapable alter bridge, and I have done that. Thanks for watching.
Divine83 VBC created a bridge consisting of a 6-core staggered fuse Clapton. He used 27 gauge for the cores and 36 gauge for the staggering and fusing. He split the bridge into quad alien coils on either side, 3-core aliens, 3 wraps each, and ohms out at 0.16 ohms, and he used a 3mm bit to wrap those alien coils. He's got it all mounted up in the Sub-Ohm Innovations 24 using all pure Adamus wire. Nick, that is a massive coil, super intricate wrap on that, man. Beautiful bronze and blue colors here. Teddy Damped created a 5-loop flattened vertebrae core for his bridge, framed it with 2 Claptons, 38 gauge over 24 gauge in those Claptons, and fused that all together in a 32 gauge radiator. Those Claptons, man, those Claptons are super tight on those Clapton wraps. Really well made, man. And some great color shots here along the bridge too. Skizapar created a similar build. 5-loop vertebrae made up of 0.2mm wire, and he put a polish on it. He framed that in 2 strands of 0.4mm wire and then braided over it again, sandwiching it all together in 0.15mm wire. Then he split the frames into a quad core build. It ohms out at 0.16 ohms. Teddy's and Schizopart's super intricate network of braids going on here. Great color on the quad coils, lighting up perfectly on that glow shot. Range of colors on these wires too. The quad coils, you can tell even before you get to the glow shot that this thing is lighting up perfectly. Starting out with the bronze, then moving on into the orange and purples, blues, and then the glow shot just lighting up beautifully, man. Ramo to Use bridge is a staggered stapled fuse Clapton. Looks like he used 10 strands of 0.5 ribbon wire, framed it in, I want to say 28, and staggered and fused it in possibly 38 and 42. Then he split those wraps into a pair of staggered staples, 6 wraps each on a 3mm internal diameter. One of my favorite shots in Ramo's series has to be this shot where we see the posts on this RDA, and you can just see just how shredded and battle-worn one of those posts are. I mean, that is a well-loved RDA. Beautiful build, man. And that's it this week for the entries from our builders in the competition. However, I do have to give a shout out this week once again to Vape Daddy 1052, who created this gorgeous extension build using a pair of aliens for the extension and used that extension to bind a half staggered staple into the Twisted Messes Squared RDA. Build is insane, man. Absolutely insane. It's got 165 likes on the Coil Wars Instagram page right now. In addition to that one, he has another really clean extension build in the Hanya RDA. That one has 107 likes. And Coil Wars is designed to be much more than just a competition. It's designed to bring inspiration to the community, to inspire present and future builders, and to convey a message of advocacy and responsibility for ourselves. This community has always been a self-regulated industry, if you ask me, and it'll continue to be so. And at the core of that is keeping us all safe. And with that in mind, this week we asked our builders what their favorite batteries are, and if they had any safety tips for you guys. Ramo to You says that he uses Samsung 25Rs and 30Qs and LG HB2s and HB6s. They're his favorites. He says they all perform well, they are all top shelf cells, and I've never had a problem with any of them vent, even when dead shorted for a small period of time. He says they're inexpensive and plentiful, and there aren't many fakes. He says he's used a single cell 25R in a tube with a monster 0.075 ohm build for a few days back when he wasn't intelligent, and the cell still functions fine a year later. He says he himself has never had a cell vent. He's never seen or heard of a 25R LG HE2, HE4 HG2, or HG4 vent. He says it's always cells that are either under your 15 amps constant discharge or Chinese cells that make the news. Skitsapart says that you should know Ohm's law and use everything the batteries give. No risk, no fun. He says as long as it doesn't endanger his life, everything's safe. He's kidding though. He says that for beginners he does recommend a good understanding of Ohm's law, being conscious of how you recharge your batteries, and to do your research to understand what is recommended out there in terms of a build. Ndivine83 VBC says that he likes to head on over to Battery Mooch's page over on ECF and get the lowdown on what the best batteries are to use. He says that he uses VTC3s, VTC4s, and Purple EFES and Aspire 40 amps. He says he knows that it's not possible that they're 40 amps, but they're still good batteries. One thing he'd like to add is to be careful. He had a scare about a year into vaping because he was loading batteries when he just woke up to go to work, and he put the batteries into a parallel box mod in a series configuration. Basically, he had one of those batteries upside down. He says if you make a mistake and something happens, try not to plaster it up all over the media. We already have all the untruthful facts going around and people thinking we are trying to get minors into vaping. The last thing we need is to hear more about vaping targeting minors and explosive batteries. He says know your limits and respect what they are capable of. If misused, they can make a serious mess. Teddy Damp says that he only uses Sony VTC5s as well, or Konion's V5A. I guess those are German batteries of some kind. He wants to remind you never to buy cheap cells like Trustfire and use only brand names like Sony, Samsung, and LG. He says that when you start vaping, starting out with a regulated box helps a lot. And if you want to get into mech mods and mech box mods and tube mods, you should really have a thorough understanding of battery safety. So with that, that's some great tips from our builders for vaping safely and choosing the right batteries. Really important information for new vapors and old vapors alike, really. So hope that's helpful for you guys. Judges this week. Our judges this week. First, let me introduce you to Ghost Vapor. Ghost Vapor has a YouTube channel himself. All he does are build tutorials. So if you're just getting into the build game and want to learn more about some intricate and interesting builds you can put together, or if you've been at it a long time and are looking for some new inspiration, go check out Ghost Vapor on YouTube. Ghost Vapor made a 15-minute long video introducing himself, and we don't have the time to show all of it here now, but if it piques your interest, definitely go check out Ghost Vapor and his channel. Watch the rest of that video and check out his build tutorials. Really interesting guy, and he's got a great story to share.
Golf.
With us tonight are two gentlemen who collect old records.
What's up, everyone? I want to say a big shout out, a big thanks to Dwayne Rambo, my friend, and to OhmBoy Josh, to have me as a judge into that Coil War. Alright, to start with, I'm gonna let you know who I am, what I'm about, what you just saw at the beginning of this. It's the Ghost. The Ghost is actually where everything started. I'll go back about 5 years ago, when my place burned down and I lost everything in the fire and I wasn't insured. That fire was caused by an old lady smoking cigarette in bed at 4 in the morning. My big fluffy cat that you saw maybe in other videos, here is she. She's actually a savior. She's the one that actually saved my life and saved everybody in that building, because she's the one that warned me that the place was on fire. So anyway, let's stop talking about these things. But that's where actually the builder in me, the vapor in me was born, where Ghost pretty much was born too. It started that I stopped smoking that day. I was an artist before, doing mural, graffiti art, painting, drawings, tattoos, name it, alright? And in that fire, I lost my inspiration. That sucks. But I found some new stuff, because when I start vaping, I want to get like something else than those ego, because I thought like it's impossible that those guys make clouds with this or people like it. So for months I read about it, and I found out about bigger mods, I found out about tanks. But now we're talking about like 4, 5, 6 years ago, when there were just a little stuff on the market about it, a little information. So then I saw a coil, how you make a coil. Oh, then you can do Clapton. When I saw Clapton, I said, wow, that's cool. I bet I can do this, and I bet I can do other variation of it. Which I started doing it. For months I was just building without actually posting anything. I was just known as Martin and not the Vapor. So I practiced to the point that I start posting the stuff that I like. And the reason why I start posting, the reason why I made videos, the reason why all of this is because I lost everything in a fire. And since I was an artist, I had nothing to show people, nothing to show people what I've done in the past, because everything burned, except the few little sketches that I saved on Facebook. So now that's the only thing I have left. So I decided to, when I got something worth saving, instead of taking a picture, keeping it or whatever, I'm gonna save it on video or pictures over Instagram, Facebook or YouTube.
I would also like to introduce you to Troy, Trillx Vapes on Instagram. His sponsors include Coil Master, Fiber Freaks, Mad Rabbit, Twinspired, and Morningwood Mods. Troy started vaping and building about 3 years ago. His background as a salesman, so a few weeks into vaping, he started making contacts with product designers and wholesalers in the Philippines, seeking work as their American sales representative. He found one that went by Alpha Artistry and began contacting shops in the US on their behalf and setting up wholesale accounts or doing the deal himself. He left that side of the industry quickly as he realized that he wanted to do more hands-on type of work. A few short weeks later, he stopped by a shop he liked and got a job there. His knowledge of products that were on the market led to quick advancement. He managed that shop for nearly a year, then moved on to the liquid side of things. He helped start and was the partner and sales representative of Cloud Queen Vapors for a 9-month period. He had a falling out with the owner and decided to embrace advocacy full force. He became a coil builder for Coils for Advocacy pretty much from the start to finish, doing convention shows from Ohio to Miami and raising thousands of dollars along the way, all donated to advocacy. Now he doesn't currently work in the industry, but he's still a passionate builder. He donates 100% of his builds now, either completely free, or he asks that his customers donate to an advocacy organization. I'd also like to introduce you to Chris Farrell, or Farrell on Instagram, an amazing builder who's responsible for pretty much reinventing the concept of using corrugated ribbon wire, which was originally developed by OhmBoy OC. He called zigzag wire, but Farrell readopted the concept into something he calls ivy wire, and ever since he started posting on Instagram with his ivy wire builds, people have just gone nuts for this guy's work, and myself included. It's just amazing stuff, and he's a true inspiration to a lot of builders. He would like to high-five all the participants and organizers of Coil Wars. He says it's great to see so many passionate people working together and pushing each other. He says it was tough to judge with so many awesome submissions, but there could only be one winner in his eyes. He switched to vaping after a decade of smoking thanks to friends, family, and local shops that took the time to encourage and educate him about vaping. A 5-minute conversation or giving away some gear you don't use anymore might be all it takes to save a life, he says. For the first time since the competition began, this Coil Wars challenge ended in a tie. And to break that tie, we called upon one of our tried and true judges to step in once more and save the day. Proby300 was kind enough to step in and break the tie for us. Thank all you guys for taking the time to judge this competition with us. It was an honor to have each and every one of you. Skits Apart is the winner this week for his Bradiator over Vertebrae Bridge. Beautiful work, man. Gorgeous build. And sadly, we will be saying farewell this week to Ramo to you. Ramo says that it's been an honor and thanks for having him. It's been a great, challenging process and a trip. Almost every round, he's either been out of wire needed or didn't like his entry. He's actually surprised he's gotten this far, he says. He says just because he may be out doesn't mean you won't be seeing him enter something. You know me, he says. Every day another extreme artifact to mold and publish. He says that he hopes to see another competition after this one. He says that he'll be there waiting. Ramo, it's been an honor to have you, buddy. It's been an honor and a privilege, and it's been an absolute pleasure to see your builds every week and build alongside you, buddy. Thank you for being a part of the first season of Coil Wars. And I think it's just a testament to the level of creativity and skill that we're seeing in the competition. We're in the nitty-gritty right now, guys. We are down to the last 3 challenges. The next 3 challenges are going to decide the course of this entire competition. And with that, our next build is going to be the Tsuka Coil. The Tsuka Coil was created by Blue-Eyed Goon 83, the same man that brought you the Alien Coil. It's a more relatively new concept than the Alien Coil. When Blue-Eyed Goon 83 originally created the concept, it was made by Claptoning some ribbon wire over a single core and then alien wrapping it over 2 cores of wire. But since then, it's developed into a number of other variations, and the way that most people make it is by twisting the ribbon wire, measuring it out against the 2 cores, and then Claptoning that over, however many cores you like. It's a more flexible approach to creating the Tsuka Coil. And to show you that method, I'd like to reintroduce you to my partner in crime, the co-creator of Coil Wars, Dwayne Rambo, who is going to put the build together for this week.
What we're going to be building today is a frame staple Tsuka. 26 gauge Kanta, 0.5 ribbon wire Kanta, pair of needle nose, pair of nylons, which is optional, pair of scissors to cut the ribbon, also optional. You can use sharp flush cutters. 2.5 millimeters. The Tsuka is a pretty big coil. You want to put it on something small. My vice grip needle nose, pair of ceramic tweezers. Lately I've been using hot glue to keep the ends of my staple together and to go into the chuck very nice. Snip myself a little piece off, and this will be used as my slider. So this is going to be a 6-ply, 6 cores of ribbon stacked, and because I'm using lightning vapes, I'm going to have to straighten out the wire. I'm going to make about 17-inch lengths. I've got a tape measure in front of me, know exactly what length I need to go and not waste as much wire. 17 inches is what I'm stretching to. I'm going to fold that in half. I should have plenty to work with for the single coil. Now the reason why I like doing single coils with Tsukas is because when you twist the ribbon, a long section of wire that you're twisting, it can have inconsistencies in it. So you're better off making one at a time. Grab it from the middle, just take them and fold them over. And I'll bind the end, the loop end, with 40 gauge. I prefer to use 40 gauge because I can just break it off when I'm done and not reaching for another tool. I'll leave about this much on. When you're holding it here on the loop so it's all stacked, you're holding it and it just kind of pushes it together. It just goes together by itself. Just bind the wire on there to hang on to the loop up here. That's all. And just snap it off. I'm going to trim the uneven bottoms and I use my sharp scissors. Get a nice clean cut. Aim it directly into the garbage can so you're not stepping on that wire later. I'm going to use a little bit of water. What I've got here, dab my fingers in there, run it down. People use their saliva. I do for my own builds, but for the video thing here, just showing you I'm using clean water here. I've got a roughly about 8 1/4 inches. So I need my frames prepped. I'm going to take one long piece of them and I'm going to stretch out 16 inches. We need to straighten it. So by doing that, I'm going to connect it to my drill by bending a 90-degree elbow to stick in the chuck of the drill. Hang on to it the other side with my needle nose. Now, make sure you grab the other end before you let it go, or the wire will give a wavy effect to it. Let it spin itself back in your hands. You got to hold tension or it will mess it up. I'm going to look exactly where the middle is. It's just the way I like to do it. A lot of people eyeball things. I have a tape measure in front of me to try and be as efficient as possible. So 23 inches, 11 and a half. I've got it in the middle by 11 and a half. I'm going to take my staple, my 6-ply, and I'm just going to rest it to the top of the flat side of the ribbon wire and push down. Now I've got it and bends in on the other side of the loop area there. So you can hold on to the loop so this don't turn in the middle, because you want the 0.6 to lay against the flat side of the ribbon.
0.6? It's 0.5, Rambo. Come on, man. Get your shit together.
You want the 0.1 side to be facing you. So we're going to take some more 40 gauge and bind that again. The great part about 40 gauge is you can just snap it off. Not reaching for tools. You get it on the way you want it on, and you just snap it. Now that we got that taken care of, I'm going to use a piece of ribbon wire. This is going to be my main slider. This is going to be the piece that I'm going to be following with the Tsuka to hold the frame together. You don't want the frames to roll on you, and putting the Tsuka on, applying the fuse, you put a little bit of pressure on there. So you want to pay attention to the prep work on this. It's very important. Prep work is very important always. It'll be a little easier if you use pliers. Here's what I did. That's going to be my slider, and I'm going to take my nylons. You can use toothless pliers too, you just have to be pretty delicate with it. I'm going to give them a little crimp on the top side here. I'm looking at the 0.1 side of these ribbon wires. Hopefully by now, if you're trying to do frame staple Tsuka, you can make a frame staple, but for those of you who can't, that's why I'm explaining this a little bit more in detail. I'm going to cut the frames off at the same length down in the bottom as where the ribbon is. So now that's in the garbage. I'm going to take the ribbon wire, slide it down just a little bit, put another section of 40 gauge in, and that's going to be the backup to the backup. That's going to slide along behind the ribbon wire. The ribbon wire slider, when I'm sliding it down, it's putting everything together. And now I can take this 40 gauge back here that I just put on and slide it down to the middle, because you're going to have this ribbon to start out. It's going to be up against your drill chuck. That's where you're going to be starting everything out. So you're just going to slide this down, and that keeps everything neat behind it. You see on the other end here where everything's a mess? That's because the ribbon wire and the 40 gauge ain't holding it together. And if you have a drill like mine, and this is a higher end drill, it's a Makita, the 1/2-inch hammer drill. It's got a big gap there. To work your way around that and to get a much cleaner build is to get your core wire as centered as possible while you're fusing it, no matter what type of build you're doing. I'm going to apply the hot glue to it. That's going to fit right into the chuck and hold all these wires together nicely. The chuck's not going to mangle anything either after I tighten it down onto it. I've got just a little butane torch. I picked it up at a local gas station, but you can get them in hardware stores or whatnot, and I've got a stick of hot glue, small mini stick. So I'm just going to apply the hot glue to the end of the stick that I got here. This is going to be the side that's going to go into the drill chuck. Keep your flame a little bit further away. You can use your hot glue gun with it. Felt a little uneasy with using that cord connected in the way and the very hot end. I pick it up, and even if you got a string, you can just spin it around. It'll take the string off. It don't matter how you get the hot glue on there, and if you got some extra on the end, you can trim it off or whatever, but then this will go into your drill chuck. Makes life a lot easier to get inside there. Get the Tsuka fuse wire prepped. I can never remember the exact length that I need, but so I'm going to go off of 4 feet here. I've got my tape measure stretched out, well, 4.5 feet or whatever it is that I have, maybe closer to 5. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fix this into a cotter pin. You can just fix it into your drill chuck. This is optional. You don't have to have that. I like to keep the spin on this very consistent. Not only that, ribbon wire is a little bit tricky to get to stick inside your chuck. Sometimes you can fold it and fold it and fold it and fold it and then try and stick it in there. Twist it onto the end of this cotter pin here like this, and I'm going to stick it into my drill chuck. Just open your drill and you stick it in. Real simple, like, take your needle nose, grab a hold of the tag end that you left when you wrapped around it, put your drill on low speed, and at the same direction, I'm going to make sure my drill, that I just spin it on in that direction, so that way don't try to untwist, which it's never happened, but I just play it safe. Then I clip the tag end off here, so that's not in the way. I don't like that sticking out. Anchor it to my vise. I'm just going to loosen this up a little bit here, and get it in there. So keeping in mind that we're going to be spinning this the opposite direction that we fuse on with, we're going to go ahead and start spinning this up. What we're going to be doing here is, you can see these shiny spots that are on here. We're going to get those shiny spots till they're on the outer edges of the core wire itself. So the Tsuka is going to be matched up to the core wire. So just watching the shiny spots as they get closer and closer to each other. And then we're going to grab the core and we're going to match up to that. To drill out a little speed, that usually helps. So now that we're about the size that we need to be, I'm going to overspin a little bit, because when I let go of this, it's going to spin itself back and the twist isn't going to be as tight. So you're going to depend on it to backspin itself, to spin back, untwist, and to the size that you're looking for to match your core. When you release it from your drill, hold tension on it just like as if you were tightening up or straightening up a wire. So now what we're looking for here is for these shiny spots to be directly on the sides of your core wire. I can use just a little bit more of a twist. We're going to go ahead and twist it a little bit more, and then we're going to start fusing this wire on. Remember, when you let go of this, when you twist it and you let go of it, you see these shiny spots here, they will open up, it will untwist. So you have to anticipate that when you're twisting it up, you want to over twist just a little bit, so when it spins itself back and you're holding tension on it and letting it spin itself back in your hands so you don't mess your wire up, your wire will get wavy on you. You want to anticipate that it's going to untwist to the spot that you need it to get to. And this cotter pin really helps on the end, because when you let go of your Tsuka wire and you loosen up your chuck, this kind of falls right in your hands, and then you can grab a hold of it and let it spin itself back while keeping tension. So this cotter pin really helps. Again, it's not necessary, but it really helps in the process with making Tsukas. Take these loops, this loop here that I made from bending the wire in half when I took the 3 pieces and bent it in half to 6 ply, and I'm just gonna hook it right onto my fishing swivel clip that I've connected to my skateboard bearing rig. The hot glue, I'm just gonna center it right into the chuck and get it as centered as possible. You want to do that with pretty much any build that you're working at. You want it as centered as possible. The hot glue will compress over it like a gasket. And you hear it just biting down, all that biting. It's not letting go, and it's holding it as center as I've ever had it, and it's not going to let that go. Now I'm going to connect the 0.5 Tsuka wire to the drill. I just kind of lock it into the gaps of the teeth. You can stick it in there when you stick the core wire in as well. Now you pop your drill into the opposite direction that you twisted it. I like to go over the top, so I twisted it the opposite direction. Now we're going to go back into the proper direction. I'm going to pop my drill into low speed. You don't want to go fast. I've got my trusty super goggles on because I'm blind and I can't see. And so let's get this going here. I've got my slider, my ribbon wire slider, about a little less than an inch in front of it. Starting to fuse, I realized that I didn't twist it quite enough. You'll notice that the Tsukas will just start crossing off of each other, and it'll just be like a zigzag effect going on there, and not the Tsuka look that you're looking for. That'll tell you that you need to twist it just a little bit more, and that's just what I just did now. It happens to everybody. So, again, let me get some water. You're gonna lead the wire, but not a whole lot. And we're just gonna go slow with this. Oh, there's a mess up. It happens. You just gotta keep going. So I always give myself play. We've got a little error here. Hopefully we got enough for it to get a coil out of it, and that's all we need. Let me get some more water. You don't quite lead this as much as an alien. You'll feel them clicking if you are not leading enough, and it'll start messing up on you. Okay, so for the next step, we're going to be coiling it, and what I'm going to be doing is connecting it to my needle nose vice grips. I'm going to take this end and push it all the way to the outer edge of these. Then I'm going to take my coil jig. You can use a screwdriver. I just push it up to the end here, and this is how I coil it. It's always good to have a set of nylon tip pliers to help the coiling process. You want to be delicate with it so you don't mess up the Tsuka itself. And we're going to be shooting for 4 reps, so let's get her installed. single coil is plenty enough. Especially when you're using 0.5, I prefer to use a single coil, and that's the reason why I only did one. Now, if you're going to make Tsukas and you want to make a pair of them, my recommendation is to make one at a time. The reason being is when you're stretching out your ribbon wire and you're twisting it, I notice with longer sections, the twist is inconsistent. It may just be the wire that I'm using, that's just the way I do things. So let's go ahead and give her a vape. Not too bad. It's a frame staple variant. My favorite coil type is a staple variant. Honestly, I think that the Tsuka itself is more of a cosmetic thing than anything else, but they're fun to build. When you put them on top of a frame staple, then you get the flavor with the beautiful look of the Tsuka itself.
Thank you to everyone once again. Thank you to Dwayne. Thank you to the Coil Warriors this week. Thank you to the judges, to the people that posted along to the Coil Wars page, to everyone that's been liking the photos, to all you guys out there right now watching this Coil Wars installment. You guys are the community. You guys are the reason that we are doing this, the reason that we have come to you week after week, episode after episode of Coil Wars, and you're the reason we'll be back again next week. That's a wrap on this week's episode. We'll see you then. Vape on, vapors.